Monkey accidentally summons 1,000 typewriters, by user Kuthulos_big_brother. Note: these events are based on a true story, but have been tweaked for storytelling, dramatic effect and protecting the identities of the guilty. At my company, we work with a lot of data. Real FSI data. Exabytes of the stuff. Honestly, we have a bit of a problem. I'm pretty sure our execs snort lines of crushed up data instead of just doing cocaine like all the normal millionaires. While they're up in their tower huffing whatever comes out the other end of a 400G network cable, we have to actually figure out how to make sense of the mess. Anyone can collect data. But cleaning it, aggregating it, and turning it into something meaningful is an art. And yes, it is an art. It's subjective, open to interpretation, and two teams with the exact same group of datasets will produce widely diverging results depending on how they process it. Point is, doing big data right is hard. Part of doing it right is testing the quality of these enormous datasets and the tooling we build to process it. On this particular day I was setting up a test for uniqueness on one of our larger datasets. We had changed the hash function used to index our records. The test itself was simple: generate a hash based on the data, and compare hashes to make sure no two hashes matched. If we had any duplicate hashes, it would output all the matching hashes along with the original data so I could see if there was a collision or if someone had put a duplicate row into the dataset. Some idiot on the engineering team, me, had been using a dummy hash function while setting up the test harness and forgot to swap it out for the real thing. The dummy code returned a simple XOR of the data with a max entropy of 8 bits. Production data was a few billion rows and processing would take a while, so the doofus on the engineering team, me, kicked off the test job on Friday before logging out for the weekend. Sunday night, I started seeing alerts from our monitoring system flooding in. I sent up a quick prayer for both the on-call and whatever poor sod on the engineering team was responsible for the mess, again, me. I thought nothing more of it and ate a nice steak dinner while enjoying the remainder of my weekend. On Monday, I come in to find that everything stopped over the weekend. Virtual machines, network services, serverless compute, databases, all of it went offline. I got to my desk, jumped on a call and began the arduous process of working together with everyone to get my team's portion of services back online. Slowly, details trickle in from infra with the investigation of the outage. A runaway script had consumed an ungodly amount of compute and storage, and since everything was hosted in the cloud instead of running out of space it just ran up the bill. One of the global billing monitors for the entire subscription had tripped, triggering a shutdown of all services. After we restored services, I got back to my tasks from the previous week. The output file from my job on Friday wasn't there, even though the job was marked as completed. As I dug into the logs, I saw to my utter astonishment it had written out enough data to give our entire C-suite a contact high off the fumes. Now I was nervous. A quick review of my code revealed the error. My dummy hash function caused the program to erroneously detect nearly everything as duplicate data. It then happily output all the duplicates it thought it saw, which was nearly everything. It did this for each individual record, resulting in a number of output rows roughly square relative to the input. The final file was roughly 8 petabytes. I'll leave as an exercise to the reader how much that would cost to store in Azure. All I'll say is that Infra's automatic billing shutoff was a last-line defense to extreme cost overruns. Thankfully the fallout was minimal since it was a stupid but innocent error. As a punishment, I received a slap on the wrist from my manager. My punitive task was being made to design and implement changes to our infrastructure so runaway test jobs couldn't consume endless resources, as well as separating out billing for test and prod. Honestly, my manager's manager probably had it worse since they had to go to the C-suite and ask for more operations budget. I'd love to say there was a lesson here, but I can't find one. We didn't learn anything new. We just didn't put up guardrails until someone drove the truck off the proverbial cliff. If anything, seeing my boss actually have my back was the biggest lesson here. I know through the grapevine there was a lot of kerfuffle about the extra spending, but I never felt the impact personally. Monkey summons N² typewriters. Budget goes boom. The time I solved an IT problem with a screwdriver, an adjustable wrench, and a hammer, by user Smelly Caca. Back in the days when network interfaces weren't integrated into motherboards, we had a Dell server, couldn't swear to it, but might have been a 350, with a dead NIC. We had a spare card, but there was a problem, the case was locked and nobody knew where the key was. We wouldn't normally think this would be a problem, because power edges of the era only had 4 different numbered keys that unlocked them and we had a coffee mug full of them in the office. I don't recall which number was which, so made them up here. We needed an 03, we had about a dozen 01s, a handful of 02s, and a couple of 04s. But not a single 03. I asked around a couple of other departments if anyone had an 03 power edge key lying around, nobody did. Asked a bit more organization widely, still no luck. We could no doubt have asked Dell to help and waited a day or three for them to show up and paid them some dollar. But the complaints from the outage were getting more frequent, and it was out of warranty anyway. So I collected the biggest flat blade screwdriver I could find, an adjustable wrench, and a hammer. Presented the items to the boss and his eyebrows slightly bounced off the ceiling, but he did approve my proposal for server violence. I headed back to the problematic server. Shut it down, then shoved the screwdriver into the lock, gave the end a couple of good whacks with the hammer, then stuck the wrench onto the screwdriver handle and gave it a good twist. Replacing the nick was a bit anticlimactic after that. Me, that's not my job. Customer, it is now, by user lemony_snicket_10. About a year and a half ago I was working for one of the largest telecom companies in Sweden as a customer service representative. Our company sold mobile phones, phone plans, wireless routers and broadbands. One day I received a call from an older man, I don't exactly remember how old he was. Around 60, I think. The first thing he said after hello was, "It's not working." "What isn't working?" I asked. "The TV." I said I was sorry to hear that and then tried to explain that we didn't sell TVs, nor did we provide cable or other TV channels. I couldn't help him with his issue and he should call his other provider. "What other provider?" he asked. I said that we provided his phone plan and his Wi-Fi and I could help him if there was an issue with those, but I wasn't trained to deal with TVs or TV plans. I listed a few of the most common providers for that and said that maybe one of those was his provider. This is where he got mad. He yelled that he didn't have time to spend all day on the phone, that he had been waiting a really long time, like 20 minutes, so that wasn't true, to talk to me and that I'd better help him. "I can't," I tried to say. "But what about Netflix?" he suddenly said. I asked what he meant and he said that he couldn't use it. I don't know if there was a problem with the app on his TV, or if he just hadn't logged in. Anyway, since Netflix does need Wi-Fi to work and I really didn't want to talk to this guy anymore, I decided that we should reset his router. If it really was an issue with Wi-Fi connection and he only wanted to watch Netflix, this would solve his problem after all. At least after he had relogged onto his Wi-Fi on the TV. It took 10 minutes to convince him that resetting the router wasn't the same as restarting it and another 5 to get him to actually do it. I then said that it would now need a few minutes to reconnect, but should be fine after that. Then I added that if it wasn't fine, he could call back and then I quickly hung up. If he called back he luckily got through to someone else. Software update causes panic, by user Entical. For context, I'm not in the US, so yesterday was a regular working day for us. I had to work until 9 p.m. to finish an upgrade for a customer. It was a classic situation where they had been using an ancient deprecated version of our software because it works fine, until everything broke in 7 different ways and they admitted they'd been having issues for years and maybe installing the newest version wasn't such a bad idea after all. The director of the company was especially worried about some scheduled tasks that run every morning and load yesterday's data into the software. They kept repeating they have 300 users who log into the software at 9 a.m. and need the data to work. It was a bit tricky to migrate all the tasks created with the old software, but in the end we did it and all the tests were fine. I logged off around 9 p.m. and was looking forward to a late start this morning. The director called at 7 a.m. this morning in a panic, wanting to know why they couldn't see yesterday's data and how come the scheduled tasks had not run. Their scheduled tasks run at 7:30 a.m. But hey, at least I wasn't the one who had to handle the influx of tickets from the users. This thing changed, what's wrong? Sir/ma'am, there was a software upgrade, we sent out emails last week and yesterday and also this morning explaining what would change. Well, I saw your email, I read the subject, do you expect me to read the entire email as well? Snakes in my PSU, a real-life urban legend, by user Dixieland Blues. I've heard variations of this bandied around and usually dismissed as an urban legend, so I thought I would share my own experience. First, a little background, I hail from Africa. A sub-Saharan region, to be more specific, beautiful, hot, dry, and dusty, and with interesting wildlife. You never forget your first hippo wandering down the main street in a busy city. I was working as the combined warranty /1ST/2ND engineer for a good-size IT wholesaler, so as you can imagine my days were busy. One of the common things was people complaining their computers were running slow and shutting down at random, if they even powered up. Sparks and smoke were not unheard of as PSUs clogged up. This was generally due to being big beige Pentium 60 boxes with dinky coolers, sitting for months under desks and sucking in all the dirt, fluff, and crud that blew in on the breeze, windows and doors being permanently open to cool things down in the building. I'd unplug the offending box, park it by the back door and point my heavy-duty blower at it. This usually blew out enough dirt that the thing looked like it was undergoing a test launch for NASA, but after 10 to 20 seconds it would be shiny and fresh and run like a dream. So when I got the call on a morning, I thought nothing of it and went off to do the usual. The first thing I noticed as I approached the desk was a rather tasty cooking smell. Early for a brat, thought I, but on the other hand you can't beat some fresh fire-grilled delights for a good start to the day, so more power to them. Except, the smell got stronger as I got to the desk and away from the windows. Still, the PC was showing all the classic signs of a fluff heating victim, powered off instantly, sparked a little, hot to the touch, so I unplugged it and trundled off to my well-hidden lair. Well hidden due to the management having a strong desire to keep their resident technological troglodyte out of the customer's eye and their own peaceful domains, if at all possible, but that is a different tale. I pulled the case off the thing and wow, did that fresh grilled meat aroma fill the room. Smelled like chicken, but anyways. That was the first thing I noticed, as I wrangled the heavy steel case with its dozen screws and manufacturer's clips that were the bastard offspring of duct tape, superglue, and a crocodile off the frame. The second thing was the snake head facing me, jaws open, teeth glinting and quite unexpected. After a perfectly manly yelp and an impressive rearward leap out the door, opening of which was archived on the fly, as it were, I begin to notice some fine details, to wit, it appeared quite dead judging by the loose tounge and the fact it was smoking gently, and only about an inch of the body behind the head was visible, with the rest somewhere in the PSU. The poor thing was only a young brown house snake, quite harmless, and quite friendly. A lot of houses actually tried to persuade them to move in as they did wonders for rodent problems. You see, what happens is that snakes, being cold-blooded, like somewhere warm of a night to nap. A toasty hot computer plinking as it cools down in an empty office of an evening is evidently something that will fit the bill, and the only entry route they can fit through, if they can at all, is the fan/S on the PSU. In later times I found a few more that were quite unharmed, if a little annoyed. Snake scales apparently being something of a good impromptu insulator, and the fans not being strong enough to do more than bonk them on the nose and irritate it, but on occasion they would touch the wrong components as they curled up for a nap. Come the morning, well, zap goes the snake and ring goes the techie's phone. So while I cannot lay claim to the veracity of every iteration of this old tale, I can confirm for all and sundry that I have seen with my own eyes snakes in the box, just waiting for an unwary techie to drop by and say hello.